Awful lot more coming up tonight. Tory peer and former MEP Baroness Jacqueline Foster, alongside her co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani. But first up, your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories. The Home Secretary says she doesn't have any confidence in the West Midlands Police Chief Constable after a damning report into the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from a match with Aston Villa last year. Craig Guilford has apologised to MPs after admitting he used artificial intelligence to give wrong evidence about banning Israeli football fans. He says AI falsely produced details of a match that never happened, which was then used to justify stopping Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters from attending the game. West Midlands Police admitted mistakes were made over its controversial decision in a statement this evening, but made no mention of the future of Mr Guilford. The government has scrapped its plans to force workers to sign up to a new digital ID scheme to prove their right to work in the UK. Ministers will still move towards digital checks by 2029, using things like biometric passports, but signing up to a national digital ID will now be optional. The climb down sparked a fiery clash of Prime Minister's questions. The 13th U-turn in just 18 months for Sir Keir Starmer's government. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch seized on the reversal, accusing Labour of having no sense of direction, as she reeled off what she called a growing list of backtracks.
The winter fuel allowance, U-turn. Waspy women, U-turn. The two-child benefit cap, U-turn. Grooming gangs inquiry, U-turn. The family farms tax, U-turn. Digital ID, U-turn. Jury trials, U-turn. We hope so. We hope so. I think that's going to be the next one, Mr. Speaker. Week after week, these poor people sitting behind him have to defend the indefensible, only for him to U-turn a few days later.
The Prime Minister hit back, insisting the government is taking the right choices for Britain, saying ministers listened and adjusted, and accused the Conservatives of hypocrisy after years of policy chaos.
Don't get me started on 5 Prime Ministers, 6 Chancellors, 8 Home Secretaries, 16 Housing Ministers. They had more positions in 14 years than the Kama Sutra. No wonder they're knackered and they left the country screwed.
Elsewhere, 10 British nationals have been banned from France after engaging in actions to stop migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats, the French Interior Ministry said today. It said these so-called far-right activists who belonged to a group called Raise the Colours had been searching for and destroying small boats along France's northern coast and were involved in so-called propaganda activity. Authorities have not released their identities. In a statement, though, Raise the Colours said it had always maintained that its activities must remain peaceful and within the law, and it does not support violence or any unlawful activity. Meanwhile, 178 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel so far today, with Home Office figures showing 41,472 migrants crossed the Channel illegally in 2025, a 13% rise from the year before. President Donald Trump has warned Iran the United States will take very strong action if protesters are executed. Human rights groups say more than 2,400 demonstrators have already been killed in a violent crackdown. One 26-year-old protester, Irfan Sultani, is now reportedly facing execution within days. Donald Trump told US television the US would act accordingly if the killings continue. In London, the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has summoned Iran's ambassador and announced new sanctions, warning the true scale of the violence may be far worse than reported. She told MPs the UK condemns the regime for the horrendous and brutal killing of protesters.
The UK has already designated key players in Iran's oil, energy, nuclear and financial systems. Further measures will target finance, energy, transport, software and other significant industries which are advancing Iranian nuclear escalation. And we will work further with the EU and other partners to explore what additional measures might now be needed in response to developments.
And the government has unveiled its long-awaited blueprint for transforming rail travel across the north of England, promising faster journeys, new stations and billions in investment. The Northern Powerhouse Rail project will start with upgrades across Yorkshire before a new Liverpool to Manchester line, with ministers claiming it could add £40 billion to the economy. Sir Keir Starmer says the days of paying lip service to the north are over, but construction won't begin until after 2030. Those are the latest headlines. For now, it's back to Michelle.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thanks for that, Tatiana. Hello, good evening to each and every single one of you. My name is Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, keeping you company till 7 o'clock tonight. That last story there about Northern Powerhouse Rail. And I can tell you now, as a Northerner, I imagine that I will be able to get to the moon quicker and earlier than I will actually be able to get decent travel in and around the northern quarters. What do you think to that? Are you a Northerner? Do you welcome and celebrate these announcements today? Or will you believe it when you actually see it? Alongside me in my panel today, I've got the Tory peer and former MEP, Baroness Jacqueline Foster. Alongside her, I've got the co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani. Good evening to you. You're both very welcome tonight, as of course are each and every single one of you. How are you doing tonight? I do hope you're well. You can join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can tweet or you can X me so much that we need to discuss together tonight, ladies and gents. Did you see that news? We're going to talk about digital ID a bit later on, but a conservative activist, whatever you want to call her, many of you will know her, Eva Flandingerbrook, she got in touch. She's posted something today. She's had a visa revoked from the UK. Forget this, ladies and gents, because her presence in the UK is not considered to be conducive to the public good. She cannot appeal that decision. I will come on to that a bit later on in the programme. Did you also see today the government talking about mulling over whether or not to ban 16 and 17-year-olds from buying non-alcoholic beer and stuff like that? How come on one hand these 16-year-olds are being treated like babies and children by this government, but then on the other hand, all this desperation to try and get them into the ability to vote in the general election? How does that stack up? Do tell me your thoughts on all of that. But of course, something that I know many of you will have very strong opinions about indeed, this whole situation when it comes to Maccabi Tel Aviv and the banning of those fans in that match against Aston Villa. Well, the independent review into this was announced today. This is our Home Secretary giving her opinion off the back of it.
The ultimate responsibility for the force's failure to discharge its duties on a matter of such national importance rests with the Chief Constable. And it is for that reason that I must declare today that the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police no longer has my confidence. It has been, as I understand it, over 20 years since a Home Secretary last made such a statement. But on the evidence provided by Sir Andy Cook, the Chief Inspector of Policing, that is now the case.
Well, you will, of course, be familiar with the Birmingham MP, Ayub Khan. This is what he had to say.
Brummies know the truth, that this is nothing but a witch hunt, and the Chief Constable is being thrown under the bus. The Home Secretary knows all too well that West Midlands Police have a reputation for working with all communities. They have never caved into community pressure. We all know this because we regularly have far-right protests and marches in our city. The police could have done a better job in terms of procedure, yes, but their reasons for banning Maccabi fans was the same from day one. We all know the unashamed racism and violence. That is the reason why they were banned. Is it worth throwing our Chief Constable under the bus? Yes. Just to show that the words of right-wing media and Dutch officials under pressure from Amsterdam City Hall matter more than our British police?
I think I'll have a little bit of what he's smoking, if you don't mind. The Home Secretary, she responded.
He purports to speak for every Brummie in the city. I think other Brummies in this chamber know that is simply not the case. I'll tell you what every Brummie and indeed every citizen of our great country needs and deserves, that when the police carry out a risk assessment, that we can trust it and that we can rely on it and that they will always be open and frank about what is really going on. That is not what happened in this case, and it is what we all should expect and deserve.
Chris Philp reckons that the Home Secretary has got the legal power, basically, to get rid of this Chief Constable. So I'm not really quite sure what's going on there. But what do you make to it all, Baroness Jacqueline Foster?
Well, I'm not surprised at all. Absolutely agree with Shabana Mahmood's decision that he should go. I think watching this Ayub Khan, the Member of Parliament, he's one of the MPs for Gaza, by the way. There are about 4 of them in Parliament. And he had the audacity to set up the petition in the first place. We're going back to around about October time, when they knew the fixture was going to take place, obviously with Aston Villa. He whipped up people from around the area. There were all his colleagues that were also on Birmingham Council, who were just the same and just as bad. And then he had friends who were in this safety group, which he used to be on too. Notwithstanding, I don't think it was actually him, but it was certainly one of his colleagues who happened to have been on the selection board when Craig... when actually the Chief Constable, yes, indeed, Guildford, was appointed as the Chief Constable. And so it doesn't look good. I mean, there was clearly from the beginning, all of us could see that this was political interference. And what the police did, in my view, and I went and listened to this evidence at the Select Committee just last week, and they'd been called back again, the police, the obfuscation by the Chief Constable and the dismissiveness of the way he was actually replying to the members of Parliament who were trying to get the truth about what had happened was actually, it was astonishing, and it was actually quite appalling. So, all in all, yeah, actually, he should have resigned. He shouldn't be waiting to be pushed. And I think Sir Andy Cook's report, obviously the head of the head Chief Constable, by the way, is obviously absolutely correct. And so, the head of, even the head of Birmingham City Council's now said he should go as well. But the police in this country, this is a horrendous example where they have allowed political pressure. The people involved here, we also had comments from imams from 3 mosques were also named, where they had told basically their supporters to stay strong and go and get the Zionists. So this wasn't about protecting the local community around Aston Villa's ground. This was actually about whipping up incitement to really attack the Jewish supporters who were actually coming over from Israel.
Aaron Bastani?
So I think it was reasonable to wait for the inspectorate report, which is obviously what we're now referring to. This conversation has been going on for months, and I think it's sensible to just hold your horses on these issues.
Yeah.
I do think the Home Secretary should have the power to be able to dismiss people like this. She's claiming she can't. I think it seems to be that she's correct, but of course with these protocols...
Section 40, this is according to Chris Philp, not me. Section 40 of the Police Act allows the Home Secretary to direct the Police and Crime Commissioner to sack this Chief Constable. So that's according to Chris Philp.
To direct the Police and Crime Commissioner, a role which is about to be removed and sort of merged with the Metro Mayors.
Yeah, but he's still there now.
He's still there now, no, of course, and direct is the key word. I just think we should have a statutory right for the Home Secretary to be able to dismiss Chief Constables personally.
So in the absence of that, then, what do you make to all this stuff that's going on now?
So look, I think it's really important to say that these football fans aren't perfect victims. They're not angels, but you have to have a very high threshold to be able to prohibit people to freely assemble and associate in this country. They have said horrible things. They've done bad things, by the way. Lots of football fans do. Actually, pretty much most football fans do. The thing is, when you make the case against them being able to come here to watch their team, you have to have a bulletproof argument. It has to be bulletproof. And what's beyond any doubt is that the argument wasn't bulletproof, not least because part of the evidence was assembled using AI, which was, in the terms of technical AI speak, hallucinating. It was creating hypotheses and examples which weren't actually real.
Yeah.
And I think that feeds into a second story here, which is about police incompetence in this country.
But hold on, because I'm not going to get sidetracked. The core issue here, we can talk about police competence another time. The police made a decision, and their decision was made to ban these fans come what may. What then happened next was the working backwards as to how can we justify this decision. So do you think, because this is the whole point in question here, the police were pressured by Muslim extremists to ban these fans?
The police are always pressured to make any kind of decision. Obviously, that shouldn't be what makes the difference, but that's happening with every protest on every side. That always happens. They would say there's a context here we have to respond to. Was the threshold met to ban these particular fans? I don't think it was met, personally, and I don't think they made the case that it was met. And I think once you have a report saying it does meet that threshold, and there are facts in there which are inaccurate, I do think you should probably lose your job. I do think also we should have a high threshold for dismissing police officers.
They started this premise. Yeah. These Muslim fellas got into the ear of these police and all the rest of it because they didn't want these fans here because they were primarily Jewish. That's the issue,
well,
surely.
I don't think they would say that, would they?
No, but hang on, just to add to that, which reconfirms that, is that they were also, this group also and others, have been trying to get any Israeli teams banned by FIFA. So this is wider. I mean, obviously, this is what happened in the UK with this particular match, but we know what their raison d'etre is. We know what their agenda is. And it is anti-Semitic. It's not just about Israel. It's much wider than that. And they have been also at the forefront of trying to make sure no other Israeli clubs actually come here too and getting FIFA involved. FIFA, in the end, stood back because, obviously, there's been things going on in certain sports as well where there's been interference, and they're generally by Islamic activists, actually, trying to get Israeli teams and sports people banned from taking part. So this was blatant political interference, and it was trying to, where Michelle is right, and I think what I said, it was trying to make the evidence to prevent this match going ahead, or certainly to prevent these fans coming in, to sort of fit their narrative, when in fact the truth was it was complete reverse. It wasn't the 1,000 Israeli fans from Maccabi who were going to be the problem. They can always land at a different airport, stay at a different hotel, get bussed in, bussed out. The police have dealt with this for decades. We've always had, unfortunately, we've had fans who've not been great from many and many British ones too. So logistically, it wasn't really an issue. It was much more than that.
Timothy.
And it's come to the fore, and it was always going to, the truth will out. It always bubbles up to the top.
Nick Timothy, the Tory MP, he says there's overwhelming evidence that the police fabricated intelligence to ban Israeli fans at the behest of Islamist thugs. Do you agree with that? Is there any part of that you agree with?
I don't know if there's... I've not read the entirety of the inspectorate report, but the only thing I think that is a smoking gun from what I've seen is factually inaccurate claims which are made as a result of AI hallucinations. And again, that goes... We're having a conversation here about political intent, but I also just think it's completely unacceptable. Whatever this was in regard to, you shouldn't have reports literally undermining people's civil liberties to attend a football match in this country on the basis of nonsense that's spewed up by a Microsoft system.
But they also tried to say that the Dutch police lied. I mean, we have a chief constable who's inferring to a select committee that the Dutch police and their authorities actually lied as well, apart from the fictitious match that went on, that they had a look at AI and said these fans had been involved in some altercations somewhere, and it wasn't even the right football match. I mean, it was... You should have actually... You want to play back that select committee... And
I did see some of it. It was...
and then we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I did see... And again, I said about competence, but also just... There does seem to me, Michelle, repeatedly, when I look at senior police officers in this country, just a lack of basic professionalism. And I know that's not... that's tangential to the conversation we're having now, but I do also think it's relevant. They often don't seem to take the job that seriously. They don't like scrutiny. They don't like accountability. They rarely strike me as intelligent, competent people. And I don't know how you change that, frankly.
Well, it seems to me, actually, that AI is the least of our worries, because it seems to me that we have a collection of Islamic or Islamist or whatever label you want to give them, extremists in this country who seem to think that they have the ability to dictate the direction of travel in this country, whether it's things like this, dictating which fans can come in because they don't like them or they disagree with them for whatever political reasons, whether it's... and we seem to kowtow to them all the time, whether it's in this instance, whether it's the fact that now, when you look into supply chains and all the rest of it, so much of the food now pumped into our food chain, against our knowledge half the time, is halal. You've got situations where I will never forget the Batley grammar school teacher.
That was outrageous.
It's still outrageous. The guy is still in hiding. I will never forget that young kid, I think it was in Wakefield, where he tossed his own copy of a Quran, and his mum had to go to some... It was, quite frankly, bizarre. So it was bizarre. It was like a kangaroo court. She's sitting there with a headscarf on while all these big, massive Muslim guys sitting there menacingly alongside her while some copper sits next to them. There's something not right in this country. I'm telling you, ladies and gents, you will have very strong opinions there of your own on that matter. Join the conversation in all the usual ways. So much we need to discuss, and we'll carry on after the break.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company. Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. With me, Michelle Dewberry, Aaron Bastani and Baroness Jacqueline Foster. Andy says, Michelle, this Chief Constable is damaging the police nationwide. Citizens' trust in the police is evaporating. Andy, I think you make a very good point. Of course, we have policing by consent in this country, and as you quite rightly point out, credibility and all the rest of it, it erodes it, doesn't it? Dawes says, please, Michelle, call a spade a spade. The police pandered to the activist extremist and banned what were potential victims. Everyone can spin it all they like. Wendy says this police chief is simply delaying the inevitable. I've got to say, I'm not actually sure how much longer this fella can actually keep holding on. Time will tell. Look, I want to talk to you about the price of your energy bill. Don't forget, Labour, of course, promised originally that they would take £300, I think it was, off your bills. They then kind of somehow spun it as a win that it would be £150. Don't quite know how that works. But anyway, now it's been claimed that the Labour Party are going to increase your bills, essentially, for the next 2 decades. This is all about, essentially, these contracts for difference, the price that we'll be paying for wind power. They've just signed a deal. I'm simplifying things here, but they've just signed a deal for the next 20 years. And it was a very expensive deal at that. Jacqueline Foster, your thoughts?
Well, you're quite right. He's apparently now just signed, we've only just found out too, a deal for £1.8 billion where they're going to build 4 wind farms. And obviously there's all the subsidies and all the contracts are part of all of that. Look, I think most of us are fully aware and fully supportive of the fact that you need to look for alternative sources of energy. And I think we've made real progress over the years. But fundamentally, when you are running an industrialised society like we are with the populations that we have, we know we need things like what were North Sea gas. We were the coal industry, King Coal was the king. I mean, we built the industrial revolution on coal and steel and all of those things. So we have got the will and we have got the scientists, and we've had a lot of investment into alternative ways to basically run this country and industry. But it seems to me, I'm not sure whether he's quite well, because it seems to me every time he turns round, this is Ed Miliband, he seems to come up with another wheeze. And anybody that sort of challenges that, we're all we're going to be climate change deniers, which we're clearly not. But notwithstanding that, we cannot power this nation relying on wind. We just can't. And I think we saw the figures last week. There was one day, and I think we were getting something like 9% of our energy from wind. And so, therefore, the fact that they decided then to pull the licences from the North Sea, when we do need, that's what we actually need. We need fossil fuel. We need all of these things to keep going. We equally can't store, any extra sort of energy coming from a wind farm. It's just, destroying Aberdeen. It's basically destroying part of our industry, and that we have the Norwegians and others who are actually escalating their use and their drilling because they know how to run a country. So I mean, your bills aren't going down, everybody. He's tried to tell us last week that, the bills were going down £150 a year, a couple of quid a week. And then we have this massive coal spell. So, I don't know, it seems as though you're knocking on, as we used to say in the North, you're knocking on the door and there's nobody in. Because as much as we try and say, we need to have a good balance here, and we need to not be hostile towards, obviously, the oil and gas industry. It's just not sinking in.
Aaron Bastani?
So the ambition for Labour is to decarbonise our electricity system as quickly as possible. That's not all energy, it's the electricity grid. So you'd still have things like, petrol and gas used for maritime and aviation and cars and heating with gas systems. But electricity would come from renewable sources. That has some downsides. In the short to medium term, it's going to mean that costs are higher. I think the really big problem, because I'm a fan of wind being part of the mix for two reasons. Firstly, we have lots of it, and it can't just be cut off or be subject to the whims of the global energy market because there is a war or a revolution somewhere else. Secondly, because it helps us meet certain ambitions with regards to decarbonising. It can't, however, be the majority of the energy mix. That's not really plausible for a few reasons. As Jacqueline said, you can't store wind, you can't store solar. This is called intermittency. These are often disrupted sources of energy. So how do you meet the gap? Historically, we've used gas. But of course, if you want to get away from fossil fuels, you can't use gas anymore. And I think the big mistake this country has made over the last 25 years is to not build more nuclear power stations. We should have built more nuclear power stations rather than shut them down. We've forgotten that. We've lost that muscle memory. Britain, believe it or not, was the first country in the world to have a large civilian nuclear power station. Anywhere on Earth, it was here. Now Britain can't build those kinds of pieces of infrastructure without help from France, which I think is really saying something about how badly we've been governed over the last 70 years or 60 years. So that would be my two bobs worth, is that really nuclear, as Jacqueline says, you need these kinds of forms of power to run an industrial economy. If you want to build things and export things and have a high standard of living, you can't do that just off wind. So on the one hand, I understand why Miliband's doing this. He's got a target, he wants to reach it. But if you don't have nuclear as part of that mix, I think things are going to go wrong really quickly. And I say that as somebody who's sympathetic to green causes. Because if you do it and people actually feel worse off, and it's contributing to a sense that living standards are declining rather than improving, you lose consent for that agenda. So I would like to see more nuclear, but I'm very positive about wind and solar. There's a lot of that to go around in this part of the world.
But this net zero lunacy, that some would call it obsession, that's going to cost us goodness knows how much more money in the long run. This was kicked off by the Tories.
It was, yeah. It was Theresa May.
I know.
And at the time, they thought, 10 years ago, going back, they thought it was a good idea. Obviously, as time went on, I think we realised it wasn't actually the right idea, because there has to be a balance. I mean, if you're going to make substantial changes to the way we live in this country, you've got to take the public with you. And I think where Aaron's actually right, and I've always said, if you explain something to people and you say, this is the way we can do this, there may be an initial cost initially, but it was the way they became fanatical, remember, over heat pumps. No, I don't want a heat pump. Now, if any of you watching have got a heat pump, that's fine by me. I don't want one. At this moment in time, I don't want an electric car. I've got a diesel and I've got a petrol. But if you want one, then that's fine. And it's about, actually, the markets determine. The markets determine at the end of the day what we can do. But it's got to be cost effective. You know, we can't have politicians sitting there with these grand ideas, because it's the public that have to pay for these sorts of things. And that's not been taken into account. So we did reverse where we were, to be fair, and we said it's got to be done now in a much more sensible way. What Labour Party have done with Ed Miliband is really just continue actually in completely the wrong direction.
Do you know, one of my viewers, Michael, just said, Michelle, before that last break you said there's something not right in this country. He's just said, I would say that most things are not right in this country. I would challenge you to find the single one that is. But on these net zero things, I would just love, it's not possible, I know that, but I would just love to have this ability and facility where all of you people that are into net zero and all the rest of it, you could have a voluntary surcharge. You guys could pick up the bill. So then you could sit there in your heat-pumped bath and you could lay back knowing that actually you're going to get your goal, you're going to get your net zero and you're paying for it. Everyone else that thinks it's a load of old cobblers can just crack on with life and cheaper bills, as was once the case. I know I live in Dream World, I know. But look, I want to talk to you after the break. Digital ID, some people saying, people are trying to move us towards an authoritarian state. Well, do you know, some people would call her a conservative activist, influencer, whatever you want to call her. Eva Vlandingerbroek, she spoke at the Tommy Robinson rally not that long ago, actually. She's had her visa revoked for not being conducive to the public good. OK, I'll speak about that after the break.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of fine weather across Europe at the moment, particularly central and southeastern areas. It's mild in Italy with sunny spells, but the one place where it is going to be unsettled on Thursday, Portugal. Heavy rain accompanied by strong winds. That system's going to move into Spain later in the day and affect parts of France. Italy, a few showers towards the north, otherwise plenty of warm, sunny spells, temperatures in the mid-teens, and it stays fine in Italy for the rest of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Heavy rain across southern areas is expected on Thursday with a warning in force. There's a risk of showers further north, but otherwise Thursday is looking relatively dry for the north. But this evening this weather front will push into parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, into northern England as we head through the night, bringing a risk of hill snow as well as some sleet to lower levels, but that won't settle or last too long. Further south, more in the way of dry and clear weather, a few showers around the south and east. With clear skies, temperatures will come close to freezing, but it's not looking particularly frosty tonight. That's except for away from the far northeast of Scotland, where it will be a relatively chilly start to the day. As we head through the rest of Thursday, we'll continue to see some showers moving in across northwestern areas of Scotland. These are most likely through the morning. They'll continue to bring some further hill snow, but actually as we head into the afternoon, it will become drier in these areas. A relatively dry start for parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England. A few showers here and there and a little bit cloudy, but some brighter skies, particularly across eastern areas of northern England. But you can't help but notice this big area of rain pushing into southern counties of England tomorrow morning. That's what we've got the rain warning in force for, so there is a risk of travel disruption and some difficult driving conditions. We could see up to around 60 millimetres of rain falling across some southern counties of England and some strong gusty winds into the evening. It will be a pretty cool feeling day underneath all that cloud and rain. Further north, there will be more in the way of sunshine, but temperatures still around just 6 or 7 degrees. Into Friday, there could be some mist and fog around first thing, probably a bit of a frosty start as well. And then we see a risk of showers, most likely across western areas. There's a risk of hail and thunder, but more eastern areas will see a much drier day. Now, fog and frost continues to be an issue as we head into the weekend, but actually there'll be quite a lot of dry weather around. Bye-bye.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Northumberland, the A1 northbound between the A1068 and the A1167 near Berwick-upon-Tweed is closed after a serious crash, reopening around quarter to midnight. In Kent, the A2070 northbound between the A259 and the A2042 remains shut after an accident, likely clearing just after midnight tomorrow. In Cornwall, the A30 westbound near the A39 and the A390 is closed after a collision, expected to clear before 10 tonight. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway is disrupted between Luton and London St Pancras International, and Gatwick Express is disrupted to and from London Victoria. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. With me, Michelle Dewberry, Aaron Bastani and Baroness Jacqueline Foster. I want to talk to you about digital ID. We broke this news, didn't we, yesterday on the programme about this rolling back of the mandatory element when it comes to the right to work on digital ID. PMQs this afternoon I thought was very interesting. Let's take a listen to Kemi Badenoch there.
I welcome the Prime Minister's latest U-turn. I feel like I say that every week. Mandatory digital ID was a rubbish policy, and we on this side of the House are glad to see the back of it. But yesterday, the Health Secretary said the Prime Minister's New Year's resolution should be, and I quote, to try to get it right first. To try to get it right first time.
Keir Starmer's response?
Mr. Speaker, I'm determined to make it harder for people to work illegally in this country, and that's why there will be checks, they will be digital and they will be mandatory. And I'll tell them what this government is doing, whether on planning, child poverty, employment rights, investing in our NHS, we're taking the right choices for Britain, and they oppose every single one of them.
Then the other bit that I know made many of you laugh this afternoon.
The winter fuel allowance, U-turn. Waspy women, U-turn. The two-child benefit cap, U-turn. Grooming gangs inquiry, U-turn. The family farms tax, U-turn. Digital ID, U-turn. Jury trials, U-turn. We hope so. We hope so.
I hate hearing clips like that because all night long now in my head I'll just be chanting U-turn, U-turn. Honestly, it drives me bonkers. But anyway, what did you make to all of this, Jacqueline?
Well, the most famous U-turn statement was Margaret Thatcher when she said, "U-turn if you want to." This lady's not for turning. No, I thought Kemi was absolutely brilliant, and you're absolutely quite right, because you've had about a dozen, we've had about 12 U-turns now, and these are all significant things. I mean, obviously she outlined just a few of them. If you look into the farmers, winter fuel, and now we're looking at digital ID. But, you know, if we come to digital ID, digital ID was nothing to do with illegal immigrants, because notwithstanding, if a boat full of illegal immigrants lands on our shores, all of the illegal immigrants in there have thrown their paperwork over the side. Now, I don't know whether it's me or I'm not being logical, but if you don't know who the person is, what's the ID card? What's their name? Does somebody then in the Home Office make up a name? So it was never really about that. It was really, to me, it's just about more control. It's about more interference in everything that you do in terms of identification. You know, if somebody wants some sort of ID in that way, there's plenty available already. I mean, I have a passport and a driving licence and all sorts of identification. But this was not anything to do really with illegal immigrants. It was about spotting who was doing what.
Aaron Bastani?
So two of the big U-turns, this one and, of course, the winter fuel allowance, were concerning policies that were never in the manifesto in the first place. And both of those policies had very little upside I think the saving from the Winds fuel allowance was going to be about £1.5 billion. You look at the political costs, I mean, immeasurably more. And I think it just shows something quite important, which is there was a complacency at the start of this government, I think, which rested upon the presumption they were going to get 2 terms regardless. ID cards as a policy is something you do when you think the next election is a washout. Don't worry, we've already got that in the bag, Gov. And I think they've done that on maybe 10 to 12 different policies, and it's really cost them. It's really cost them. It's certainly cost them a majority. I suspect it's cost them number 10 after the next election. A long way to go, of course, but it's certainly cost them a majority. And I think it speaks as well to Keir Starmer's naivety as a politician. This was something that was being pushed particularly by the Tony Blair Institute.
It was.
Larry Ellison, various big tech interests that would stand to make significant amounts of money from it. And nobody in Labour High Command said, you know what, this is going to do us real political damage. It's similar with the local government reorganisation. This is based upon a report, English Devolution right now, is based upon a report by PwC, a consultancy. Guess who picks up most of the work from the local government reorganisation? PwC. Nobody in Labour is smart enough to say, you know what, these guys are pushing an agenda which isn't beneficial to the country, but also, just purely from a rational self-interested point of view, is not beneficial for us as people who want to be re-elected. It really is astonishing. And in terms of naivety, I don't think we've ever seen a government like that before.
Many people would suggest that this government is, I was going to say, heading towards being slightly more authoritarian. Some people would say that happened ages ago. Many people will be aware of this lady, Eva Vladingerbrook. Take a listen in case you're not.
Legend holds that St. George fought against a dragon that was demanding human sacrifice. He fought a battle of good versus evil. And today, hundreds of years later, we are still fighting that very same fight.
Well, that was at the Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom march. Many of you will be aware of Eva. She's very strident, outspoken when it comes to things like these not-so-small boat migrants. She was very critical of Keir Starmer just in the last couple of days. Well, anyway, now she's had her ETA basically revoked, so she was planning to come to the UK. She's now got notification out of the blue saying she can't travel to the UK without this visa because, I quote, your presence in the UK is not considered to be conducive to the public good. You cannot appeal this decision. What do you think to that, Miss Jacqueline Foster?
Well, we've got, Islamic fundamentalism, it's arriving through the door every 5 minutes. All of a sudden you've got... I'm a great fan of hers, actually. I think she's absolutely excellent. And it wasn't actually just a Tommy Robinson rally at that time. He was certainly linked to it, but there were thousands of people at that rally who had nothing to do, hadn't supported, weren't particularly interested in Tommy Robinson. She is an excellent orator. She's been taking on the Dutch government over the Dutch farmers because the Dutch farmers, like our farmers, are being treated very badly. And Eva has spoken out on that and many other things. Again, ridiculous decisions at times that the Dutch government's made, along with the government like ours. Too many of the governments, unfortunately, across Europe are all on the left and, I don't know, lily-livered and wet lettuces. They don't seem to have any courage at all to do things. So to actually revoke this and not allow somebody like her, who is a perfect person to be able to come and travel with good views, she doesn't hide behind somewhere on a keyboard, says more about this government and this Home Office, really. They're absolutely appalling.
Bastani?
So conducive to the public good is rather nebulous, isn't it? I think there's many people who live in this country who probably aren't that conducive to the public good, but we certainly let them say what they like because we believe in freedom of speech to some degree, although I think that's a question about the government. If she'd committed a criminal offence in this country, or if she'd engaged in incitement, or if she'd committed a criminal offence in the Netherlands, I totally get it. And actually, I'm in favour of the government being very punitive and harsh with people that do that. But again, it's about thresholds, isn't it? I don't think she's met that threshold. And I'm somebody on the left, I don't agree with many of the things she says. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's the point of living in a free society, isn't it? So the fact that their thinking hasn't been laid out, She hasn't got the right of appeal. She hasn't broken any laws. I do think it's concerning, but it also goes back to a fundamental point. We don't have a constitutional right to free speech in this country. I think we need one.
Just to tell you, and I'll quote, this is what Ava put on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, a few days ago. Keir Starmer, she says, wants to crack down on X under the pretence of, quote, women's safety, whilst he's the one allowing the ongoing rape and killing of British girls by migrant rape gangs. Evil. Despicable man, she says. That got nearly 4 million views, and then a couple of days later, in popped that into her inbox. I've got to say, I think you've got some front telling people like Eva that she is not considered to be conducive to the public good, whilst you simultaneously, not that long ago, let some fella into the country who basically hates all white people, was having conversations about potentially setting fire to Downing Street and so on and so forth. So you've got to question some of the priorities that go on in this country, haven't you? Look, coming up after the break, I want to talk about the men from Britain that have been going over to Calais to take matters into their own hands when it comes to trying to stop the not-so-small boat crossings. They now have been banned from going to France. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you until 7.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Aaron Bastani. Coming back to that first conversation that we had today about that police chief in the West Midlands, there's quite a lot of you that have been getting in touch asking, what on earth do you actually need to do in the public sector these days to get fired? Very good question, million-dollar question. It does seem to be quite tricky. Imagine in the private sector, you got up to half of these antics. You'd be out quicker than your feet touch the floor, wouldn't you? Anyway, look, we know the absolute disgrace now that is the loss of control when it comes to these not-so-small bird crossings. Well, I've got to tell you now, you can't blame people, actually, for wanting to take matters into their own hands, because no government is actually going to fix this issue. The previous one certainly didn't, and this one certainly doesn't look like they're going to be able to either. You have this situation where you've just got in local communities all of these random unknown men, often from backwards cultures, just dumped in amongst you, your kids, your grandkids, and some of these guys have decided to take matters into their own hands. You've got an organisation called Raise the Colours. They've set up a bit of an offshoot, if you would like. They've been going to Calais, and they've decided they would call themselves Concerned Fathers. They've been trying to stop these crossings themselves in a variety of different ways. They've been slashing boats. They've been trying to prevent these boats from actually setting off in the first place. Well, now these guys have been called, you guessed it, far-right activists, and they've now, the French Interior Ministry, have now banned them, essentially, from entering or being in French territory. Your thoughts, Jacqueline Foster?
Well, the thing is, they wouldn't have had to ban anybody if the French had been doing their job. We paid them £500 million to actually deal with this on that side of the channel, and apparently now their trade union, the police officers' trade union, won't allow them to get their feet wet. So, you know, if they'd have actually taken this seriously and our government's actually giving them all this money to France to assist in this operation, I don't think this would have been necessary, but people are very concerned, and parents are concerned throughout this country, quite rightly, as to what's happening. So, you know, so they've been banned. I think 10 of them are nationals or whatever. But the organisation itself, those people around the country, apparently, and, you know, when you see the lamppost and somebody's put the, I think, the Union flag up or the flag of St George.
Yeah.
And I think that's really built up. But I think there is genuine concern, as we saw in Epping Forest, and we see throughout the country for parents, about the people that are here. And they're actually just basically running rife. And half the time the authorities don't seem to be able to control what's going on.
Aaron Bastani?
This is France, ultimately. It's a matter for the French authorities, the French police. The quote here is that the ministry has identified as militants within the movement who carried out actions on French territory. Again, if those are criminal actions, then you can't really blame the French authorities for not allowing them back in the country. They've not specified that, but potentially that's what it is. Ultimately, it's vigilantism, and Jacqueline's saying people wouldn't have to do this if there hadn't been failures by the French government. There's some truth to that, obviously. But I also think if you're an activist and you're doing this stuff and then you get banned from entering the country once you're identified, you kind of know those are the rules, right? That's the game you're playing.
I've got to say as well, this Raise the Colours group, they have said they always maintain that its activities must remain peaceful and within the law. They say that the organisation does not support violence or any unlawful activity. I just got to tell you, I'll reiterate what I've just said a second ago. I think it's absolutely disgusting what the Tory government did, Jacqueline, what the Labour government are continuing to allow when it comes to these channel crossings. All of us, when we try and enter this country, leave this country, we are subject to all kinds of queues, checks, balances, you name it. But yet you seem to be able to just board this not-so-small boats dinghies, and in you come and open. People say it's not El Dorado and all the rest of it. It is. Absolutely disgraceful. And they are now directly putting people, citizens, at risk, not just safety risks when it turns out, you know, you hear about people sexually assaulted and raped and all the rest of it, but people are not going to tolerate this. They're not going to stand for this, and you are going to see this behaviour. I'm not saying I condone it, but you are going to see more and more fathers, more and more mothers stepping up and doing what the government should be doing and actually trying to prevent all of this activity to try and keep their own children, their own grandchildren safe. For now, though, that's all I've got time for. Thanks, panel. Thanks, everyone at home. Have a great night. See you tomorrow night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Heavy rain across southern areas is expected on Thursday, with a warning in